Hello everyone. Welcome to Atlona's live demo series. My name is Brian Montini and I'm the sales engineer for South Central United States based in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. Today I will be taking you through the Atlona OME-MS42 switcher in a small conference room setup. This will allow us to route video as well as USB devices. Let's get started. Here you'll see a front and back view of the Atlona MS42. We have multiple inputs to this unit, some unique that you don't see on many products today. One of those unique connections is the USB-C input. Not only will this allow video to be sent out via USB-C, we will also accept back USB host data as well as 60 watts of charging to power that device. We also have a DisplayPort input. We have two HDMI inputs, and then we move to outputs. There we have HDMI out and HD-Base-T out. These two outputs can be either mirrored or matrixed so we can have different operating modes in this switcher. We have some other connections such as RS-232 analog audio outputs. And then we see some ports that we don't see very often on switchers. We have some USB hub ports. These are for devices such as video cameras, such as USB microphones, USB speakers, other USB devices that we might use very often in soft codecs. We also have two USB host ports, USB host 1 or 2. This will allow us to switch the USB devices to this USB port or this USB host as well. So multiple computers can connect to those devices. As I also mentioned, the USB-C port also acts as USB host 3 in this case. On the far side here, we also have a HD-Base-T receiver called the OMEGA-EX-RX. And this is an HD-Base-T receiver that allows for HDMI out, just as many of you are familiar with HD-Base-T receivers. But on this, we also have USB devices as well. So maybe your room camera is at the far end, not right at the table, but up on a wall, up by a display. So let's see how we would actually plug this stuff in. So here we have a simple drawing of a small conference room where we might have our fixed room PC in the room that would be connected maybe via DisplayPort and USB host. And that's in there maybe with a wireless keyboard and mouse. People can come in and use that space. But I might want to come in with my own laptop and utilize the room resources such as a PTZ camera, such as a USB speaker and microphone combination that's already in the room instead of crowding around my own laptop's camera and using the speakers within the laptop. So when I plug in via HDMI and USB, or simply a single connection of USB-C, if my computer supports that, I will be able to take over those room resources, such as the speakerphone mic and or the camera, and other devices that may be plugged in via USB. So let's get started with how all of this is actually accomplished in the system. Here's our velocity control system. And here we have several rooms. I'm going to go into the OMEGA-MS42 demo that we have set up. And in this room, I added a few devices. I added the OMEGA-MS42. I also added a confidence monitor, as we showed on the drawing of the room, so that I'm not always looking at the screen to present. Also added a main display that was at the receiver side, the HD-Base-T receiver of this. Also add a few sources, the room PC, a table HDMI input, and a table USB-C input. From there, let's see how we configured this and made the connections. So I'm going to go into the OMEGA-MS42, and I'm going to take the USB-C connection and connect that to the table USB-C so we know where those signals are coming from. We're going to take the display port from the room PC, and we're going to take the HDMI from the table HDMI. Pretty simple. We're also going to make sure we're showing all of these so they come up on our touch panel as well. I can add icons into this as well. So I've assigned USB symbol for USB-C, a desktop Windows icon so we can designate that's a computer in the room. And with no icon selected, HDMI is actually going to have an HDMI. icon. We're going to hook the outputs. The HDMI out is going to go straight to the confidence monitor, the video input there. And the HD-based output is going to go to the main display HDMI 1 connection. We're going to make sure everything is saved there. And we are virtually finished. The one other thing I want to do is go into the OME-MS42 natively. We're going to log into that box. And if this was the first time setup for this box, I would simply jump right over to configuration or to system and set up my IP address, set up any front panel lockouts, update firmware if necessary, and then I would come into AV settings and I would make sure that the switching mode of the outputs is set to mirrored, which is what I need in my case. In your case, you might want a matrix output. But in my case, I want the confidence monitor to match the display at all times. So I'm going to select the mirrored output. There's an auto switch mode. If I was not using a control system such as Velocity, I might want to have automatically, if everybody disconnects from the room, even if the desktop PC in the room is asleep, I would want the input to fall back to that display port connection. So that's what I have set in here. The scaler is set so that if I'm inputting a 4K signal, it will downscale to 1080p if necessary on my displays. It does not do upscaling for this product. And also, where do I want audio sent to? Which outputs carry audio? So we set those in here as well. Finally, I've had many clients that use other products on the output of our unit here that might be sensitive to having HDCP selected because of rebroadcast. So we can turn on and off HDC support per port on our switcher. So if you have certain devices like a MacBook that might always want to be in HDCP mode, we can tell it, hey, we don't support that. Just give me normal unencrypted video. And finally, the USB routing is pretty important here. What this is doing is, how I prefer to set this up is, we want to follow the video in a fixed setup like this, where we have an in-room device, we have 2 table inputs. We want to make sure that we are routing USB to follow the video input. So under the table, I have my desktop computer, which is plugged in DisplayPort, and that's always plugged into USB host port 2. We never want to disconnect or disassociate those 2 connections. Whereas if I'm plugging in with USB-C, I want the USB to follow USB-C. And if I'm plugged in with HDMI 3 or 4, I want the additional USB cable to be routed and associated with HDMI 3 or 4. This way, we always connect and bring the room resources over to the device that's active. So we've set all that up. We're going to go in and launch the control of this room. We're going to turn on the room. And now I can drag an input such as the room PC, and it goes to both displays. What's really neat here is I do happen to have a computer set up that is a laptop computer in a lab environment. And since I just disconnected the table HDMI from the room, I don't see a camera, I don't see the audio devices. But if I drag the table HDMI and say, I want to see a table HDMI right now, this computer is going to quickly see the USB devices come online. So here comes our USB camera. Here comes our microphone and speakers that are USB. And all those USB devices have been routed to that tabletop input. As soon as I disconnect, we can't see this because I don't have a remote view of the desktop PC. But as soon as I move to a room PC, all those USB devices get disconnected from the tabletop computer and sent back to the desktop PC. You'll find that this product is extremely useful in these small rooms as soft codecs and soft video conferencing becomes more and more prevalent in our society, that we don't want to be tied behind these tiny little cameras and the little speakers of the laptop, but we need these cameras and speakers and mics within the room space to make a more pleasant conferencing experience. But we don't want to be crawling under a table and unplugging USB ports to bring them up to a different laptop. This greatly simplifies the installation, limits the number of physical boxes you need in a room to accomplish a soft video conference setup and switching scenario. I hope you enjoyed this live demo training today and look forward to more to come from Atlona.